Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all having the best day today. If you're new here, welcome. We talk about true crime cases here on this channel, so if that's something that you're interested in, come join us. Make sure to subscribe. So favorite day of the week today, it's Monday, so you guys know what that means. It's Mystery Monday, but today's case is going to be a solved case. This case took place in 2013 in Bakersfield, California, and this is the case of Todd Chance and the Chance family. So Todd Chance was born on the 10th of March in 1968 to parents Diana and Travis. They lived in a small farming town just outside of Bakersfield, California called Shafter. And they lived on a farm there with Todd's younger brother Scott as well. And both the boys would help their parents raise the family's pigs and horses. And Todd was described as a regular cowboy. He was often seen wearing a cowboy hat and boots to match. From a young age, he also loved going off-roading with his dad, and he fell in love with fast cars, which is a passion that he and his dad shared. So when he was old enough to drive, his parents actually gifted him a blue 76 Cobra 2, and he was this young, good-looking cowboy who drove a cool car, so there were no shortage of ladies that were into him. His mum, Diana, said that he was a, quote, chick magnet. Every day there were notes on the windshield of the car from some little girl that wanted to have him call her, liked his car, thought he was cute. But there was just one woman that would tickle Todd's fancy. Her name was Leslie Janae, but everyone just knew her as Janae, and they met after Todd graduated high school and he got a job at the local drugstore as a security guard, and Janae was working at that drugstore as a cashier. She was a single mother to a young daughter, and she had already divorced from her high school sweetheart because he was actually cheating on her, stand-up guy. So when she first met Todd, initially she didn't think anything was gonna happen because she said, quote, he was very good looking. I kind of thought that he was a ladies' man and a player, and I wasn't interested in that at all. I had already been married once. I had come to the conclusion that I wanted to find some ugly fat man that would cherish me. That is a real quote from Janae. Anyway, she quickly came to realize that despite his good looks, Todd was not the player type, so their relationship just developed really quickly from there, and Todd was, you know, he was great. They were a great match. He was very doting. He really cared for Janae and also for her daughter Jessica. He really took her in and treated her as if she was his own kid. Eventually, Janae and Todd got married and went on to have two more daughters, Samantha and Sarah. Janae was working her way through a teaching degree, and the cashier job was one of 3 other jobs that she worked to support herself through that degree. Todd went on to work as a truck driver and focused on keeping the family's home life running while Janae finished her teaching degree. And after receiving her certification, she began working in administration at Fairview Elementary School. She was a super hard worker. If you couldn't tell already, she was very committed to making something of herself, even if it meant working 3 jobs, trying to put herself through school. So after working as a teacher, an academic coach, and an assistant principal, she eventually worked all the way up and became the principal of Fairview Elementary. And Todd continued his work as a truck driver. He worked in the trucking industry for 15 years. And so now with Janae's income as the principal, they were doing pretty well for themselves. They were able to take luxurious vacations and provide a great life for their daughters. Todd honestly sounded like the best husband and dad you could ask for. He was a hard worker, but his main priority was always his family. He spent all of his free time with them, playing video games with the girls, practicing sports. Jessica, Janae's daughter from her first marriage, considered Todd to be her dad. He was always there for her, which is something, you know, she didn't get from her biological father. And if there was ever a sick child or anything that needed to be done around the house, he would take on the responsibilities so that Janae could focus on her more demanding job. By summer of 2013, Jessica had moved out of the family home, and Samantha and Sarah were teenagers, and the family all decided to go on, you know, a family vacation to San Francisco and Las Vegas, and they just had the best time. It was like a really good family bonding experience. Sarah said, quote, it was a really good summer, probably the best summer I've ever had. And then just weeks after returning from that vacation, Todd was found dead. On the 25th of August at 9:27 a.m., police were dispatched to an almond grove, which was 24 kilometers or around 15 miles west of Bakersfield. And the field workers there had found a body. They said it had to have been dumped there after 7:30 a.m. that morning because that was the last time that they had driven through the area. When first responders arrived on the scene, they were immediately able to identify the body as that of 45-year-old Todd Chance because he had his wallet on his person, which had his identification in it, and his phone was also found 12 meters from his body. He had been shot twice in the chest, with one of the bullets passing through his right hand before continuing onto his chest, and both of the shots were made at point blank range. And the fact that one of the shots had passed through his hand indicated that he had tried to, hold his hand out to defend himself. The investigation began almost immediately as detectives tried to piece together how all of this came to be and why anyone would want to murder Todd. A robbery was ruled out almost immediately because obviously his wallet was found in his pocket, his phone was found nearby, nothing had been taken. His car, however, which was his pride and joy, was a 2011 black Mustang, and that was nowhere to be found. So detectives kind of theorized that maybe he was involved in a carjacking and was shot in the process. They began searching nearby areas for the car, and that's when they actually got a call from some nearby residents from Tiger Flower Drive, which is 30 kilometers or 18 miles away from where Todd's body was found. And Tiger Flower Drive is in a neighborhood that is not exactly the best area. It's known for criminal activity and drugs. And the residents that actually called up about the car did so because they thought that the car was too nice for the area. They just thought it was generally suspicious that this nice car was in this area. Police obviously went straight out to go and inspect the car, and they looked through the windows, noticed that the keys were actually on the floor of the car, and the car was just unlocked. And then inside the car they found a .38 caliber revolver, and it had 2 spent shell casings in it. So immediately their thoughts are that this is the murder weapon, which also was super baffling to police because normally, in a murder case, people try and dispose of the evidence, throw the gun out as they're driving, bury it, whatever they want to do. They don't just leave it out in the open for detectives to easily find. Anyway, so they do some forensic testing on the car, of course, and the only fingerprints and DNA they find belongs to Jana. So her fingerprints were found on the driver's side door, and then her DNA was found inside the car on the gear stick. But of course, she was married to him. She was Todd's wife, so it made sense that her fingerprints and her DNA were on the car, so that was kind of a dead end. More information I found online also said that they potentially collected a possible blood sample, dirt sample, swab sample, a front seat, like one of the front seat floor mats, a pink towel, and 2 notes. And it's not clear what these pieces of evidence meant for the investigation, but it was clear that they were leaving no stones unturned in this investigation. It was also clear at this point that this was not a carjacking. That had been police's theory up until this point, and now they were like, there's just no way, it doesn't make any sense. There's no way he would be killed in a carjacking and then they would leave the car behind with the keys still in it, the murder weapon still in it. Like, it was just, And even Kern County homicide detective Kevin Brewer said, quote, "Our carjacking theory is now showing less and less evidence, especially with the car being left open and the gun inside it. That was just so rare and unheard of that a carjacking now is not in mind anymore." The car was, of course, still a really massive piece of evidence in this case, though, and it was like Todd's baby. It was his 4th child, if you will, and it was a really nice car. And the fact that it was just abandoned in this kind of sketchy neighborhood, totally unlocked, it's just not something Todd would ever do. And this indicated to police that this was a targeted attack on Todd. Somebody wanted him dead. And they probably left this car in this area to throw investigators off a little bit. The coroner actually described the incident as a planned and considered murder. So now authorities have a new theory, and their theory is that he was actually shot inside his car and then his body was taken to the almond grove where it was dumped, and like he was already dead before they dumped him there, because when they found his body, his shoes were spotless, and the almond grove is quite dusty, so it's clear that he hadn't been walking around the almond grove, otherwise his shoes would also be quite dusty. But they were spotless. Anyway, later that afternoon, police went to the Chance family house to inform Jana that her husband had been murdered. And soon after this, their 3 daughters and Todd's parents also found out. And they were all totally in shock and, of course, devastated. They were completely devastated, but also just so shocked. But not only that he was dead, but that he had been murdered, because who would want to murder Todd? Jana said, quote, "It was unbelievable. I couldn't comprehend. He was such a likable guy. He didn't hang out with a rough crowd, he wasn't into drugs, he wasn't into, gambling. It's very baffling." Their daughter Jessica also said, quote, "This is a great loss for everybody. He was the best guy, the best husband, the best dad. He's been in my life since I was 4. He was my dad and he was everything." Janae also really managed to stay calm and collect herself during such a, distressing and emotional time, and she really did whatever she could to help the police out. She provided phone records, bank records, told them about the events of that morning, that Todd left the house about 7:30 to 8 a.m. He said that he was going to a gun show with his dad Travis because Todd was a gun enthusiast and a gun collector. She also said that she was at home that morning getting some work done while their daughters slept in, and her daughters also confirmed this. One of their daughters said that she had seen Janae home at 9:30 a.m. and the other daughter said that she had seen her mother home at 10 a.m. Police also asked Janae to go and check, Todd's gun cupboard and collection to see if any guns were missing, and she went and had a look, and actually a .38 caliber revolver was missing. She did know that it was unusual for him to, take a gun out with him, but he was going to a gun show that morning, and sometimes when they go to gun shows they bring their guns to show them off or trade them or sell them, that sort of thing. So it wasn't that crazy, but it was crazy that it was a .38 caliber revolver, because the gun that was found in his car was also a .38 caliber revolver, which all but confirmed that the gun that was found in Todd's car was Todd's gun. It belonged to him, and that his own gun was used to murder him. So investigators continue on with the investigation, questioning people that knew Todd, friends, family. And when they question his dad Travis, that's when things get weird and complicated, because Travis had no idea about this gun show. He said that he and Todd had no plans to go to a gun show, they had no plans to see each other that day, and they hadn't spoken to each other at all that day, which obviously did not line up with what Janae had told the police. So either Janae was lying, Travis was lying, or Todd had lied to Janae about his plans. Police obviously need to get to the bottom of who's lying about what, because when there's a big kerfuffle like this, obviously it's got something to do with the murder. So police look into the gun show, and turns out it is real. It really was on that morning, but it was on the east side of town, and Todd's body was found west of town, so the complete opposite direction that he would have to drive in order to get to the gun show. So police then went through his phone to see if they could get a better idea of what was going on, what the true story was. And on his phone, they actually find sexually explicit photos of Todd's ex-fiance, a woman named Carrie. And not only did they find sexually explicit photos, but they also found flirty messages, and then Todd and Carrie kind of talking shit about Janae as well. And this really put a new perspective on things for detectives, because they had already before this kind of thought that Janae was acting a little bit not how you would expect a wife to react in this sort of situation. When they first informed her that they had found Todd's body and that he was dead, her demeanor was just super calm, very collected. It was something that detectives had clocked right from the get-go, right when they told her. They were okay, this is not how we would expect her to react. And then her story's not adding up. This gun show, he never went there. It's on the wrong side of town. She said he went there with his dad, and the dad knew nothing about it. And now they find these messages on Todd's phone that he's potentially having an affair with his ex-fiance, and it's just not looking good. Because if an affair is not a motive for murder, then I don't know what is. Not that you should ever murder someone because they had an affair, but it is a very common motive for murder, isn't it? Somebody has an affair and the other person is well, I'm not gonna leave you or divorce you or deal with this. I'm gonna commit murder. Anyway, things are just really not looking good for Janae at this point. There's just a lot of things that are stacking up against her, and detectives are thinking that either Todd lied to her about the gun show, said that he was going with his dad, when in reality he was not going there at all. He was gonna use that opportunity to go and meet up with Carrie and carry out that affair, or that Janae actually found out about the affair, found these messages with Carrie on his phone, confronted him, and then murdered him in a rage. Janae also knew about Carrie. It's not clear whether, it can't be proved really if she knew about the affair, but she definitely knew about Carrie because, it's her husband's ex-fiance. Of course, they've probably spoken about that kind of thing. And also early on in the investigation, Janae had tried to indicate that Carrie might be responsible for the murder. Todd and Carrie had broken up before, Todd and Janae even met, but it was a very messy breakup, and they had only just reconnected in 2012, so the year before the murder, which was was also, you know, kind of a red flag to detectives. So of course they went and found Carrie so that they could talk to her as well. She had an airtight alibi for the time of the murder. She was in Mission San Juan Capistrano with her daughter and her friends, and she also had a parking ticket to back this up. She also said that her and Todd hadn't spoken in months and they never met in person after they reconnected. So she was ruled out as a suspect, and so detectives had to continue, you know, looking into who the real suspect is for this murder. Of course, they think Janae is a bit suspicious, but they don't want to get tunnel vision. They really want to exhaust every avenue to make sure that they have the right evidence to convict the right person. And they did find quite a lot of evidence. So I'm going to go over all of the evidence that they uncovered. Initially in the investigation, there wasn't a lot to go off. There was just Todd's phone, his wallet, and his car. So they went back to the area the car was in. They kind of canvassed the area to see if there were any witnesses, and they managed to find some witnesses and also some CCTV. One witness said that they had seen a middle-aged woman with her hair tucked into a baseball cap, wearing large sunglasses, get out of Todd's car and walk away from it. Police were then able to obtain a string of CCTV that showed this same woman carrying a plastic bag and a red backpack, and they were convinced that this was the same woman that the witness had seen. There was a little bit of contention about whether the person in the CCTV footage could have been a man, but, you know, police were pretty confident it was a woman because there were witnesses that had seen a woman in the same place that the CCTV footage had picked up this woman, and it all matched up, you know? And they were also able to follow this woman on CCTV. Basically, they were able to figure out her exact movements because they found her on so many different pieces of CCTV footage. So they followed her movements. They located her walking into a Starbucks at a nearby shopping complex. When she enters the Starbucks, she doesn't buy anything, but instead she goes straight to the bathroom. And then when she comes out of the bathroom, she's wearing an entirely different set of clothes and shoes. Detectives went through all of the CCTV frame by frame, and there's one particular section that really caught their attention. So basically in the plastic bag that she's carrying, you can see what looks like the yellow lid of a container, and police were of the belief that this may have been a tub of disinfectant wipes that she had used to clean up the crime scene. So basically she leaves the Starbucks, and then she's seen again moments later on a Lowe's security camera discarding something behind where they keep the stacked bags of soil. Then at 9:22 a.m. she heads towards a Walmart where she uses a payphone to call a cab, and then she walks out of view for a short amount of time, comes back into view of the surveillance footage, but now when she's come back into view, the disinfectant wipes were no longer inside her plastic bag. So they believe that she may have gone and disposed of them in a nearby public bin. The next string of CCTV footage shows her getting into a cab and being driven away. The cab came 23 minutes after she made the phone call from the payphone, so it's nearing 10 a.m. by this point. And then there was actually also footage recovered near the Chance family house that shows someone being dropped off there by a cab. More CCTV footage was also discovered that pictured Todd's car driving to and from the Almond Grove where he was found. You can't see who's driving the car, but all of the timings, you know, help to paint a more accurate picture of when he was killed. So the car is seen driving towards the Almond Grove at around 8 a.m. and then driving back the opposite way at 8:30 a.m. Then at 8:57 a.m. the car is spotted again driving near the neighborhood where it was abandoned, and this is right around the time when Todd's body was found. All of the CCTV is really grainy, so it's hard to make out who the woman is, but detectives were pretty certain that it was Janae. And also the fact that, you know, there was a cab that left and then a cab shortly after pulls up near the Chance family house. It's all looking a little bit suspicious, you know? So 4 days after Todd's murder, police want to bring Janae into the station to question her, and they kind of dupe her into doing this. They make her think that she's coming in to pick Todd's car up, and she goes with Todd's dad Travis to do this. And once she gets to the station, it becomes clear pretty quickly that they actually didn't want to do that. They just wanted to question her. And they also wanted to question Todd's dad Travis. They showed him all of the CCTV footage just to be like, hey, do you recognize the woman in this footage? But he did not recognize her. When it came time to question Janae, they did the same thing. They showed her all the CCTV footage. They said, do you recognize this woman? And she said, no, I have no idea who that is. Then they started pressing her about Todd's murder a bit, and she refused to speak to them. She requested a lawyer, and it was at this point that she was arrested on suspicion of her husband's murder, which was insane for a lot of people. Like, a lot of members of the community, people that knew her from school and whatnot, were in disbelief. They could not fathom that the woman entrusted with caring for so many children in the community could be capable of such a horrible crime. So there were a lot of people who thought that she was innocent, especially her daughters. While all of this was going on as well, police, detectives, went to the Chance family household to execute a search warrant, and Todd's mum, Diana, was there at the time that they were doing that. So she saw them taking all of the stuff, electronics, that sort of thing. And it was at that moment that she realized, and that Todd's dad, Travis, realized that Janae was a suspect in the murder of their son. And it was also at this point that Travis changed his opinion on the CCTV and said, actually, I think I do recognize that woman. I think it's Janae. But police, it just wasn't enough. The CCTV footage was very grainy, and after reviewing the footage and all the other evidence that they had at this point, the Kern County DA's office declined to press charges. So after being held for 5 days, Janae was released from custody, and she was also given back her late husband's car for whatever reason. But she was released due to the poor quality of the CCTV, and they just didn't think that they had enough evidence to convince a jury of her guilt at this point. But she was still the prime suspect, the only suspect in this case. Her mannerisms, her demeanor, her walk, the way she walked, like her gait, had detectives convinced that she was the woman from the footage, but they just had a lot of questions that they needed to answer before they could successfully bring this case to a jury and convince them that she was responsible for her husband's murder. They needed proof. They needed a motive. The Chance family were this seemingly happy family. They had great kids. They had a great life together. But of course, there was this affair, which, as I said before, if that's not a motive for murder, I don't know what is. But they, of course, needed to prove that she knew about this affair, which she claimed that she had no knowledge of it until after the murder. They also needed to prove that she was the woman in the CCTV footage, because if there's one thing that detectives were convinced of, it's that the woman from that footage was the murderer. It just all added up. She's changing her clothes, she's disposing of things. She was in Todd's car driving to and from the almond grove where his body was found. That was the murderer in that footage. No doubt about it. Unfortunately, they did have a lot of trouble, trying to prove these things because they're difficult things to prove. And the case came to a little bit of a standstill, but Kern County Homicide Detective Kevin Brewer was not going to give up. He was on this case, and he spent years looking for more evidence, looking for more surveillance images, really trying to build a case against Janae. And in doing so, he uncovered a bombshell. So what he discovered is that when the Chance family went on holiday together and they were in Vegas, they went to a CSI themed crime exhibit, which is of course based on the popular TV show CSI. And in and of itself, this is obviously not cause for suspicion because this is a super popular TV show. So many people would go to this crime exhibit. It's not really a weird thing, but detectives, they have nothing at this point. They really are at a standstill in this case. So they decide to go and visit this exhibit, see what they can find. They honestly could not even believe what they found there. So at this exhibit, there's a bunch of different crime scenes, and several of these crime scenes had an uncanny resemblance to Todd's case. For example, in one of the exhibits, the suspect used a payphone to avoid detection. In another exhibit, the suspect changed their clothes to throw detectives off. In another exhibit, a woman actually killed her husband and disposed of his body in a deserted area. It honestly seemed like Janae was using this family vacation as inspiration or education on how she could murder her husband. So the rest of the family is, going through, just checking out an exhibit going, wow, that's crazy. And Janae is going, damn, that's a good one. I should probably take some notes. And honestly, that is not all the information they uncovered, all the evidence they uncovered. More and more holes were appearing in Janae's story. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that her fingerprints were found on the driver's side door of Todd's car, and then her DNA was also found in the gear stick. Well, she had gone on to claim that she had never driven his car, that she didn't even know how to drive a manual car at all, which didn't make any sense. Why would her fingerprints be there if she didn't know how to drive the car or how to drive a manual? It was just an instance of her being caught in a lie. They also found CCTV footage of her from just weeks before the murder, making a purchase and talking to the greeter at the very same Walmart where the killer used the payphone after Todd's murder. And in the footage, it also seems like she's talking to the greeter about, asking them where the nearest payphone is based on the gesture that she makes in the footage. This is what police believe she was doing anyway, because the gesture she makes is just her putting her hand up to her ear like a phone, basically, and like pointing around sort of thing. So definitely seems like she's looking for a payphone, and why would she need a payphone considering she has 2 cell phones? There's no reason that she would need to use a payphone. If you remember, I also mentioned earlier in the video that she claimed that the morning while Todd was being murdered, that she was at home doing work on her computer while her daughters slept in. So the FBI took that computer, sent it off for analysis. Analysis came back and said there was no activity on that computer until 11 a.m. that morning. At the very least, she was lying about what she was doing that day, but the fact that there was no activity until 11 a.m. basically gives her enough time to have gone out, murdered her husband, and returned home before 11 a.m. The surveillance footage was also shown to Janae and Todd's daughter Jessica, the first daughter, and they asked her if they believed the woman in that footage was her mother, and she just broke down and said that yes, she did believe that it was Janae in that footage. And she also said that the backpack the woman was wearing in that footage looked very familiar to her. Janae and Todd's other 2 daughters, Sarah and Samantha, however, did not believe that their mother had anything to do with it. They thought Janae was completely innocent. And Jessica also ended up eventually coming out and changing her opinion as well and saying, no, I was wrong. I was confused by the footage that they were showing me. I believe that it's not her in the footage, that she is innocent. She basically claimed that detectives showed her all of the surveillance footage at once. So they showed her the vision of Janae going to Walmart a few weeks before Todd's death, and then also all of the vision of the unidentifiable woman from the day that he was murdered, which she said just clouded her judgment and that she thought they were all from the same day. So yeah, at this point, all of Janae and Todd's children believe that Janae is innocent, and they do not think that she was the woman in the CCTV footage. Detectives, however, did not agree. They thought that it was her, and they believed that they had all of the evidence they needed to convict Janae at this point. They were of the belief that she found out about the affair that he was having with his ex-fiancée Carrie, and so she decided to murder him. And they also believed that she wanted to get the life insurance policy. He had like $500,000 worth of life insurance policy. They also found out that she earned significantly more than Todd, so they theorized that maybe she didn't think divorce was an option because she would have had to pay him alimony if they did get a divorce. She also did manage to get cash out some of his life insurance policies after a lengthy battle, but in the end, Todd's parents, Travis and Diana, managed to stop her from getting the last payout, and that instead went to Todd's daughters. So then finally, after 3 years of trying to build a case against her, 49-year-old Leslie Jana Chance was arrested and charged with the murder of Todd Chance, her husband, in December of 2016, and her trial began on the 9th of December in 2019. At the trial, the prosecution painted a picture of Janae and Todd going for a morning drive on the Sunday morning that he was murdered. And while they were in the car, Janae pulled a gun on him. He obviously held his hand out and she shot him at point blank range, hence the reason he was shot through his hand. And then she shot him a second time. She then drove his body to the almond grove where she dumped the body before driving the car back to the area in which it was abandoned. She disinfected it before leaving the car there. They argued that it was undeniable that it was Janae in the CCTV footage from the morning of the murder because she had an unmistakable gait. You know, she walked in a very forceful manner. She really swung her arms exactly the same way in which the woman in the CCTV footage walked. They believed that the murder was not entirely driven by financial motive, that it was instead a crime of passion after she discovered the photos and the messages between Todd and his ex-fiancée, Carrie. During the trial, there was also a key witness that was brought to the stand, and this was somebody that was known to Todd and Janae's neighbor. So they didn't know Todd and Janae necessarily, but they were visiting Todd and Janae's neighbor on the morning of the murder. And while they were there visiting, they testified that they saw Todd's car leaving Todd and Janae's house, that Todd was driving, and that there was a woman in the passenger seat who was wearing a baseball cap and large sunglasses. This also lined up with the other witnesses that saw a woman wearing the same thing and, you know, the woman on the CCTV footage. It all lined up. And now this person is saying that they saw that same woman in the car with Todd, leaving Todd and Janae's house. So it had to have been Janae. So Janae's defense, part of it relied on her alibi that was provided by her daughters. As we've discussed, one of her daughters said she saw Janae home at 9:30 a.m. and one of her other daughters said she saw her home at 10 a.m. But you know, as we've discussed, it is very possible for her to have gone out, murdered her husband that morning, and still have been home around 10 a.m. The woman seen in the CCTV, who was dropped off near the Chance family home, was seen as late as 10 a.m. So it also makes me wonder if Janae's daughters are mistaken when they said they saw their mother, or if, I don't know, maybe there's a little something more to it. So honestly, that alibi doesn't even really mean anything. The only real physical evidence we have that she was home that morning was her computer that was taken by the FBI for analysis, and shows that there was no activity on that computer until 11 a.m. So whether she was home at 9:30, whether she got home at 11 a.m., it's still, either way, gave her ample time to have gone out, murdered Todd, and still come home that morning. Her defense team also accused authorities of hiding evidence. So they cited that there were a few people that knew Janae who had seen the surveillance footage and were unable to say the woman in that footage was Janae. And they believed that this evidence potentially could have exonerated Janae and that it was never admitted into evidence. Personally, I don't think a couple of people saying, I can't tell if that's Janae in the surveillance footage is going to really help her case at this point, but they also argued that the key witness that said that they saw Janae and Todd leaving the property in Todd's car must have been mistaken, because this witness claimed that they saw the car with Todd and Janae already in the car reverse out of the garage onto the road and then they left. Right? But the defense says that Todd never let anyone get into his car until he had reversed out of the garage because the garage was too tight. He didn't want anyone to bang up his doors. So if this witness did not see Janae get into the car in the driveway, then they must have been mistaken, is basically their argument. Janae's daughter Jessica also took the stand. She's the same one that broke down saying that she believed it was her mother in the surveillance footage, and then later rescinded that and said, actually, I think I was mistaken. I was confused because of the way they showed me the footage. Cameras weren't allowed in for parts of this trial, so we don't actually know exactly what she and the other witnesses said. But based on interviews from outside the courtroom, it seemed like she really blamed herself a lot for at first agreeing with the police that it was her mother in that footage. Janae also actually took the stand as well to tell her side of the story, and her testimony spanned multiple days, and she said that she loved her husband. She had no idea that he was speaking to Carrie. She claimed that there was no possible financial motive for her to have killed him because she was the main breadwinner of the family, even though the financial motive could have been his life insurance, could have been the fact that she didn't want to pay him alimony. Like, it doesn't really matter in this situation that she was the breadwinner, in my opinion. She also argued that she couldn't have possibly have been the murderer because she needs glasses in order to see, and the woman in the CCTV footage is wearing sunglasses, and she claimed that she doesn't own any contacts, she doesn't own any prescription sunglasses, so it's not possible that that woman is her because she can't see without her glasses. And in response to this, the prosecution actually introduced evidence that Janae had ordered contacts 1 month before Todd's murder. So she was just like, I mean, it really didn't look good for her because she was caught in a huge lie in that. And it really brought up this question of, if she can lie about something like that, something as small as, you know, not owning contacts, what else is she lying about? And something as small as, you know, it couldn't have been me because I don't own sunglasses, as well as like the weakest argument. You know, it's very, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit sort of thing. Gives me those vibes, but just really didn't work out because the contacts, like, it's a smoking gun. It really did not look good for her. Oh, and what was even worse actually is that, so after the trial, like after everything was said and done, she did an interview with Dateline and said, you know, I never wore contacts in 2013, never ever, not once. And what is so like embarrassing about that is Dateline actually interviewed her in 2013 and she's not wearing any glasses. So she had to have been wearing contacts in that interview. I mean, unless she was rolling around blind, because apparently she couldn't see without glasses, but something tells me she was probably just wearing contacts, right? And then also during another interview, this one came after she was arrested the first time, you know, when she was held for 5 days and then she was released. She did an interview where she expressed that she was frustrated because the police had taken her glasses, and she obviously wanted to be able to see. She wanted to be able to see during her hearing, see her daughter. And she said, quote, I didn't have my contacts and I didn't have my glasses. And why would you be saying I didn't have my contacts, I didn't have my glasses if you only wore glasses? Like, if you never wore contacts, you wouldn't even Think of that, right? The jury actually wasn't presented with any of these facts during the trial, but they were presented with the medical records that showed she had ordered 2 boxes of contacts a month before Todd's murder. In the end, on the 31st of January in 2020, after a 4.5-week trial, including 8 days of jury deliberation, the jury delivered a guilty verdict, which was a massive shock to Jana. She claimed that she actually thought she misheard the verdict. She really wasn't expecting to be found guilty for this crime, and her daughters were of the same mindset. She wasn't sentenced until September that same year, and the judge handed her 25 years to life in prison with an additional 25 years to life for a firearms enhancement. Despite this, Jana still maintains her innocence to this day and has done a bunch of interviews to try and prove and make people believe her. She appealed her conviction, but the verdict was upheld in January of 2023. So she is currently behind bars at the Central California Women's Facility and won't be eligible for parole until 2041, when she will be 74 years old. Her daughters still wholeheartedly believe that Jana is innocent, and that they're also not the only ones. There's actually a bunch of people online who don't think that she murdered her husband. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the evidence, the reason so that people think that she's not guilty. One of the major points of contention is that none of her DNA, fingerprints, blood, hair, anything like that was found with Todd's body at the scene of the crime. And there were also shoe prints near his body that were found, but they were not a match to any shoes that Jana owned. She also had no blood, no injuries, nothing on herself as well when police went later that morning to inform her of her husband's murder. But Jana is not a superwoman, right? Like, this is a smart woman. I don't think it's like that far-fetched to say she was just able to prevent her DNA from being left at the scene. Like, she was able to even clean it up afterwards, just like she disinfected Todd's car after the murder. And I will also say that nobody else's DNA was found there. It's not like there's DNA there and it just doesn't match her. It's just that there's no DNA there. There is the shoe prints that don't match any of her shoes, but again, I don't think it's far-fetched that she maybe wore different shoes to try and throw the police off, especially after they found out that she got a bunch of her ideas from this CSI crime exhibit. You know, it's just another idea she could have had, and she was like, you're right, let me put on some different shoes and throw them off. Because as well, later that day, we saw her on the CCTV footage, or we saw somebody in the CCTV footage change their shoes and their clothes. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Anyway, another doubt also comes from missing evidence. Allegedly, 911 calls relating to the discovery of Todd's body and his car were deleted, along with any other evidence that they may have provided. On top of this, some of the interviews that were conducted early on in the investigation were lost due to not being properly logged as evidence. Again, just my 2 cents if you care to hear it. I mean, we don't know how crucial this evidence could have been, but I just feel like it wouldn't have really changed the outcome of the case purely based on all of the other evidence that was provided. The third point of contention that a lot of people often refer to as well is the CCTV footage that was used in Jana's prosecution. Some people think that the woman in the CCTV appears noticeably smaller than Jana, especially in comparison to the confirmed CCTV of her at Walmart just a few weeks earlier. But the thing about any sort of video footage, especially grainy CCTV, is that, you know, the angle of the camera and the lighting can drastically impact how somebody perceives it. I'll let you guys be the judge though. I'll put them side by side on the screen right now and just let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think it's the same woman? Do you think it's just potentially the same woman? Do you think it's 100% not the same person? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. And then the last point is just the fact that authorities, you know, this one is super weird actually. Authorities were never able to, or never did, recover the rubbish that, you know, the killer left on CCTV. We see them go, dispose of something, come back around. We see them get changed, come back round. You know, none of that. The clothes, the shoes, the rubbish was never recovered. And even on this channel, like I'm sure you guys remember some cases I've done, like there's been multiple where police have gone to a rubbish disposal with thousands and thousands and thousands of tons of rubbish, and they have been able to get evidence, find bodies, find little clues in all of that evidence. And this CCTV from this case was found pretty early on. So the fact that they were not able to recover any of those items is definitely weird. Like you can see in the CCTV where she disposes of them. I don't know if they were like taken really quickly. I don't know if the police even tried to recover those items or they were just like, we don't need them, but that would be weird if they were like, we don't need them. You know what I mean? So definitely an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think. Like, do you think that she should have been convicted? Do you think there was enough evidence to have actually fully convicted her and sent her to prison for 25 years to life? Or do you think there is a possibility that she didn't do it? I also just think, like, who else? Who else would have done it if not her? You know, she probably found out that her husband was having an affair. I mean, this is gonna be the third time I've said it in this video, but if that's not a motive for murder, I don't know what is. Truly, it's like the motive for so many murders I have covered in this series. Like, no other suspects have ever been presented in the case as far as I'm aware as well. So if not her, then who, you know? And also, just one more thing I want to say on this case is, as a result of this whole case, Todd's parents and then Todd and Janae's daughters, their relationship soured and they are no longer in contact, probably because of the fact that Todd's parents, Travis and Diana, believe that Janae is guilty and the three daughters believe that she is not guilty. So they're not in contact anymore. But yeah, that's everything for this case. That's all from me today, guys. I would really love to hear your thoughts on this one because I think it's interesting that there is so much contention on whether or not she was guilty. I would love to know your thoughts, what you think about the CCTV, if you think that it is her in that CCTV footage. Personally, I think they got it right. I think she's guilty because, like I said, if not her, then who? You know what I mean? Like, who would want to kill this guy? She had the motive. And there's no other suspects. There's no one else it could have been. So that's what I think. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I look forward to speaking to you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and hopefully I see you in my next video. Bye, guys.